Hi, welcome to session one of a three-session workshop for Rive. And today we will be tackling this project right here. So what you're seeing is this website that I built within Framer for my company. And yeah, this particular asset is done completely in Rive, and this is something that we're going to try to reproduce today. So the first thing you need to do is go into the community file. Right, I have it here, and I'll provide the link below. And what you want to do is click on Remix. And once you have the Remix file, by default, it's going to open within the browser, but I would highly recommend getting the Rive native browser, the Rive native app, and to work off of everything here. And so this is the finished product. This is not what you're going to see right here. And again, I just want to show you, right? It's kind of like you're able to drag and you're able to see this guy spin. In the end, this is what we're going to try to do with some of the kind of the plants on the side, kind of rustling in the wind sort of effect. And that's what we're going to try to accomplish today. And so here is the file that you'll probably be seeing, right? It's empty here because you're going to try to piece it together. I did leave this animated for you guys, but everything else we will be tackling today. And so just to show you guys the lay of the land, I'm not going to go through every single nook and cranny because I assume many of you guys come from some form of design tool background. So either you have a handle on Figma or of Sketch or something of the sort. So this should be pretty familiar to you guys. But yeah, on the left is a layer pane very similar to Figma and Sketch and even Framer. And when you select on a layer or something, the rights would be the attribute pane. It's everything about the layer that you've selected. And if you have nothing selected, then it's just kind of like the default settings. Again, very similar to Figma. The tools I will kind of walk through bit by bit as we go progress through the different sessions. But one thing that's very different from the other tools is this design and animate toggle, right? So if I click on animate, you'll see this huge shelf come out. And this is where all the magic happens. This is where the interactions, where the motion, the animation piece all go within here. And you can toggle this easily by hitting the tab key, right? And you'll be doing this a lot. Design, so the big difference between the two is anytime you need to just kind of like actually design this thing, kind of like Figma. Think of design as Figma mode, right? You're trying to place different things in order before you animate it. That's when you want to be in design mode. If you start designing in animate mode, things get wonky because you start putting in keyframes, which is not what you want. So yeah, a good rule of thumb is if I'm designing like I would be in Figma, do that in design. If I'm ready to animate it, do that in the animate tab. Okay, with that out of the way, you'll see here I have the wind turbine selected, and I've left this empty animation timeline for you. By the way, we'll talk about state machines starting in session 2. Today, for the sake of simplicity, we're just going to focus on timelines. And you'll notice that there's this loop arrow because, yeah, I want this to be looped, right? And you can toggle between the two here. One shot is basically at the end of the timeline, it just stops right then and there. Loop means at the end of the timeline, like here, it cycles right back to the beginning, like what you just saw. And then finally, ping pong is, if it goes to the end, it's going to go in reverse until it gets back to the beginning, and then it's going to go back to the front. Okay, so with that out of the way, this is really, really easy. Okay, so with the turbine blade selected, go to the first one. We're just going to animate this really easily. And you're going to look at the rotation here. Now, when you click on this, that basically tells it to set a keyframe down here, right? So if you go here and you click U is just kind of opening up to the keyframes. You'll see that the rotation is set to 0. And when we go to the very end, and I set it to 8 seconds here, what you want to do with the rotation is set it to 360 and hit enter. And you see once I hit enter, this lights up, which means that there's a keyframe here. So if you look at between the two, nothing much has changed. But because it's set, everything in between, it's going to go from 0 seconds to 360 by 8 seconds. And it's called tweening. Everything in between, it's going to automatically just set the different rotations between the two. And this is nice because once you rotate it, so let me go to 7 seconds and hit play, right? Once it goes there, it goes back to 0 degrees and it seamlessly just rotates, which is exactly what we want. Now that we're done with this, we're going to put the wind turbine inside the hero asset. And what you don't want to do is to just drag this in. That's not how it works. what you want to do is go to the hero assets, and then go over here, and then you want to click on the nested artboard or the letter N as a shortcut. Just put it here, and then why don't we select the wind turbine? Okay, you see that it's here, and we're just going to drag it to the center-ish, roughly like this. So what we want to do, so I'll go back to my original page, right? As you see, it's kind of sticking from the bottom, and it's kind of peeking outside of it, right? So we'll go back here, and we'll just kind of go towards the bottom, roughly around this. We just hit, it's on the loop layer, when I hit play, and that's not bad. One thing to note though is like you can tell that the bottom is peeking out, whereas the original one, it's not peeking out, and we want to fix that. So in this file, I provided a mask for you, and basically we need to somehow combine this inside the mask. Okay, and the way to do that is with the wind turbine selected, go to clip, hit the plus arrow or plus icon, and you'll see that this whole thing turns blue. And with that, you want to select a shape to use as a clipping source, and we want to use the mask turbine. And so once that is done, you'll see that the bottom is clipped. But if you notice the mask turbine, it extends outwards so that the fans won't be clipped as it rotates. And we can verify this by hitting play. And yeah, everything works perfectly. Right, the bottom is clipped, and the top is outside of that. Great. Now we're gonna bring in the bushes. So the left bush and the right bush right into here. So once again, we're gonna click N or click here nested artboard. I'm gonna do the left one first. So do L bush. And by the way, if I move this right now, because I'm in animate mode, notice down here what's gonna happen. If I move this, you'll see that it's gonna create a keyframe, and that's not what I want to do because by default it's here, and now with this keyframe it's here. So basically, you don't want to do that. So you want to delete this, and you want to go to design. So either click tab or you click on the design. From here, you want to put it somewhere around here. Let's kind of go back to our example page. Yeah, so it's kind of tucked away, and like there's nothing showing on the bottom, and same with the right bush. So going back here, I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna just use my keyboard. And if you hold shift, you can do a little bit more. I'm gonna put it behind the wind turbine. And similar, click it N again. Let's do it with our R bush. So here, and we're gonna move it roughly around here. Okay. So here we're gonna move it behind it. And let's see how this looks. Well, first, we know it doesn't look great because it's peeking out again. And instead of the mass turbine, what we could do is just use the window itself as the mask. So with this selected, we're going to do the same thing, clip, and then do the window. And then with the R bush selected, we're going to do clip, and we're going to do the window. Okay? And we're going to hit tab, and we are going to see. So I've animated the left bush for you, but the right bush has not been animated. And so that's something what we're going to work on. And this will be our last thing for today. So let's look at let me just show you the left bush so you can kind of see. So with the loop selected, you can see that it looks kind of messy, but basically what it's doing, we just focus on the top, and then you click U, you can just see the animated features. What it's doing is going from 0 rotation, and at the 2-second mark, halfway, it goes just a little bit, so just some random, 7.4 degrees, and then it goes back to 0. And you'll also notice that I've marked off 30 seconds to 330 as the workable range. And what that means is once it hits 330, it's just going to loop back to the beginning of this frame. And the way you can change that is you can change the work area if that's enabled, but I've already done that for you. So again, one thing I'll do, I'll just hide the other just to make it easier for us to see. And maybe I'll zoom in just so we can kind of get focused on this. Right, you'll notice that it goes from 0, and if I hit play or space, you just see that all it does is move up and down, up and down, up and down. And all the rest of these guys are very similar. It's just that I've offsetted them, okay? And so I'm gonna turn them back on. And then we'll go back to the original reference page to see what I did here for the R bush. So with that zoomed in, see the loop. So you see that R top is very similar, okay? So we're gonna click Q. So rotation goes from 0, and at 2 is roughly -3. You can do whatever you want, right? But I'm just showing you mine. And it goes back to 0. And then on the bottom, you'll see that it's pretty much the same. So over here, it's 0 degrees, right? Just a little bit offset. And then it's, -1. And the reason I offset it is because if they're exactly aligned, actually, no, I'll just show you exactly what I mean. Okay, so -3.2 and -1.27, roughly. So we'll go back here. Okay, so with the R bush selected, go to the loop, and then we'll have the R top. And yeah, so what you want to do is go here, go to the very beginning, so at the 30-second mark, go to the rotation. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select this, Apple C or Command C for Macs, go to the very end and just paste that, Command D. And so all you have right now, so again, if I click U, it's just 0 degrees. That just makes it easy because it's going to start and stop at the same part. Go halfway in between, and I know that's 2 seconds. And I'm just going to, you can actually drag this, right? If you see my cursor change, right? I'm going to kind of just drag it down to about right there. And already we can kind of see it kind of going down and up, and because it's looped. So we're going to do the same thing for the bottom part. And select that. And again, we're going to start with 0. And we're going to start with, and do a copy paste. And hit U. And we're going to do a lesser degree here. It's not -7, but maybe somewhere around there. Okay, so this is why I don't like it when they're completely synced, because it just looks very robotic and mechanical, right? It doesn't really look organic like you would see bushes rustling, and they move at different frequencies and things like that. And so we're going to offset this by just a few, right? And I'm going to say maybe about 5. So I know this is at 30 seconds. I'm looking at the timeline here, right? So if I go to maybe 20, maybe let's go 10 seconds or 10 frames, right? This is by frames, not seconds. I'm going to move everything over so it starts here. Now you'll notice we're not done, because once it ends here, so I'll just show you. I'm going to hide the top just so you can kind of see the bush. What happens when we run out over here and before it loops back? Watch carefully. I don't know if you can see that because 10 frames is really still, but basically for 10 frames, it just stays still. And then it resets. It suddenly jumps to not 0, but -0.3. Now, for this, it doesn't matter so much, but you'll notice that it's not as smooth. And what we want is to make things a little bit more smooth, okay? And so what I'm going to do, so here's the trick. I'm going to bring this whole thing back. And we know that it's about 1.5 seconds from 30 frames to 2 seconds is when we did the negative. So what we're going to do is copy this. From 30, we're going to jump another 1 second and 30. So that's going to be, so 3:30, so that's going to be exactly 5, which I put it here. And I'm going to paste this here, okay? So all I did was just paste the middle point over here. And now with this whole thing selected, I just clicked on R bush. I can move this to wherever I want. So we could even go to 15 if we wanted to. Drag the whole thing over. And because I don't have this selected, you only see this, we're going to watch this again. Yeah, so it's very smooth now, right, within here, because it's offset correctly. Okay? Now, one more thing before we put this back is there's this whole thing about easing, and I'm going to flip over to my other screen. Okay, so here we have a page about easing. And what is easing? So let me just show you. Easing is basically, you see the slope here. This is across time, right? If X is time and Y is distance, and linear is just exactly the same, right? And so it's just pretty boring. So it's left and right. Now let me show you what ease looks like, okay? And basically, I don't know if you guys can tell, maybe if I increase this to 3 seconds, right? Yeah, so this is still linear, right? It's going at the same time. This has a much smoother beginning and end. and it simulates more organic things. So a lot of things in life, it doesn't just suddenly pick up and suddenly go back, right? When when you start, you kind of pick up speed, and then when you stop, you kind of decelerate. And so, generally speaking, in out is a very good default option to go into. And if you look at this by frames, and what you're seeing here, I'm going to exaggerate this just a little bit. There's a pretty cool site. And so, like, if you see it's a linear, it's just basically a circle, right? Every single, uh, exact same spacing between all the dots here. In out here, or ease in out, you'll see that a lot of these circles clump up here. So what it is like before it goes, it's kind of slow, and then goes fast, and then goes slow again. It kind of clumps up again, and then similarly when we reverse, right? It goes slow, picks up, and then slows down. So again, all of that is a very complex way of saying that this is generally more organic. And different trajectories or different types of things have different kinds of easings, right? So for a ball bouncing up and down, it's not going to be in and out, right? It's going to just have one of these things, and we can go over that in a little bit. Where that comes in for us is, as we look at these guys here, is right now they're linear, right? Right now they're linear, and what you want to do is select them, and what you want to do is click on this right here, cubic, and you'll see a very similar shape, right? It's an easing curve. By default, it's this right here. If you don't click it, you can tell by the diamonds. If it's diamonds, it's linear. If it's easing, it's circles. It's similar. You can click on the rotation layer here on the timeline. All of them selected, and let's just click on this, right? And boom. And then we view it, and it's kind of small here, so it's kind of micro animation, so you might not notice it, but this is important for later on. But anyways, why don't you do that? You can pause there, and if we go to our final hero example, go into the loop, you'll see that magically it's already animated. And the reason why, we'll cover this more next week, is because when you import any of these things, when we did the nested artboard, by default, it takes in the state machine. And again, we didn't cover state machine today because there's already, I think, a lot just with the timeline. But by default, the animations are associated with the state machine. And so you kind of get that by default. So we didn't have to do anything in the loop, right? So you'll see that there's no keyframes here. It just knows what to do because it's inheriting all of them from their original artboards. And that's the power of nested artboards. It kind of keeps your timeline clean, it keeps your layers clean, and you can just do a lot with that. And so you'll notice that if I tweak stuff here, it's going to automatically propagate over here. Okay, so that's it for this week. And yeah, I will see you guys next week.